In the annals of Indian history, few figures are as polarizing as Muhammad bin Tughluq. He ruled the Delhi Sultanate from 1325 to 1351. This period was marked by bold reforms and bizarre decisions. Tughlaq was a man of startling contrasts. He was known for his exceptional intelligence and madcap schemes. Contemporary chroniclers paint a picture of a complex ruler. They describe him as a visionary one moment and a tyrant the next. Tughlaq was well versed in logic, philosophy, and the sciences. Yet he often acted in ways that defied reason. His reign was a roller coaster of brilliant ideas and disastrous implementations. The Sultan's reputation for being mad stems from his more outlandish policies. These include his ill-fated currency experiment and the forced relocation of his capital. However, many historians argue that Tughlaq was simply ahead of his time. His ideas were often sound in theory but faltered in practice. This dichotomy has fascinated scholars for centuries. Tughlaq's reign was a pivotal moment in the Delhi Sultanate's history. It marked both the zenith of its territorial extent and the beginning of its decline. His actions set in motion events that would reshape the subcontinent. To understand Tughlaq is to grapple with the complexities of medieval Indian governance. It's a tale of ambition, innovation, and the perils of unchecked power. Muhammad bin Tughluq's administrative reforms were bold and far-reaching. He sought to centralize power and streamline governance. The Sultan introduced a new system of provincial administration. He divided the empire into provinces, each under a governor. This was meant to improve control over far-flung territories. Tughlaq also attempted to reform the agricultural sector. He encouraged farmers to grow cash crops. The aim was to increase the empire's wealth. He set up a Department of Agriculture to provide loans to farmers. This was a progressive idea for its time. It showed Tughlaq's understanding of economic principles. Perhaps Tughlaq's most infamous reform was his currency experiment. He introduced token currency made of brass and copper. These were to be exchanged for silver coins at face value. In theory, this would have eased the strain on the royal treasury. It was a concept similar to modern fiat currency. However, the implementation was disastrous. The token currency was easy to counterfeit. Soon, the market was flooded with fake coins. This led to rapid inflation and economic chaos. Tughlaq was forced to withdraw the tokens. He had to exchange them for precious metals at great cost to the treasury. This episode earned him the moniker Muhammad the Mad. It showcased both his innovative thinking and his failure to anticipate practical problems. Tughlaq's taxation policies were among the most controversial aspects of his reign. He increased taxes in the Doab region between the Ganges and Yamuna rivers. This area was known for its agricultural productivity. The Sultan believed it could yield more revenue. He raised taxes to fund his military campaigns and ambitious projects. The increased taxation had severe consequences for the peasantry. Many farmers were unable to pay the high taxes. Some abandoned their lands and fled to forests. Others rebelled against the Sultan's authority. The policy led to a significant decline in agricultural output. This in turn caused food shortages and economic distress. Tughlaq's approach to tax collection was often harsh and uncompromising. He sent armies to enforce tax payments. This further alienated the rural population. The Sultan's policies reflected a disconnect between his theoretical knowledge and practical realities. He failed to understand the limits of agricultural productivity. The taxation policy had long-lasting effects on the Delhi Sultanate. It weakened the economic backbone of the empire. It also eroded the Sultan's support base among the rural population. This made it harder for Tughlaq to govern effectively. It set the stage for future revolts and the eventual fragmentation of the empire. One of Muhammad bin Tughluq's most ambitious and controversial decisions was the transfer of his capital. In 1327, he ordered the entire population of Delhi to move to Daulatabad. This city was located in the Deccan region, about 1,100 kilometers south of Delhi. The Sultan's reasoning was strategic. He wanted to have a more centrally located capital. Tughlaq believed that Daulatabad would be better positioned to control the southern parts of his empire. He also thought it would be safer from Mongol invasions. The move was planned on a massive scale. The entire apparatus of government was to be shifted. This included nobles, soldiers, artisans, and common people. The journey to Daulatabad was arduous and poorly planned. Many people died on the way due to heat, exhaustion, and disease. Those who survived found Daulatabad ill-prepared to host such a large population. The lack of adequate water sources was a particular problem. the new capital struggled to function effectively. After just 2 years, Tughlaq was forced to abandon the experiment. He ordered everyone to return to Delhi. This time, many refused to make the journey back. The failed transfer had severe consequences. It caused immense human suffering and economic loss. It weakened the Sultan's authority and drained the treasury. The Daulatabad debacle became a symbol of Tughlaq's impractical and often cruel policies. Section 5. Expanding horizons, military campaigns and territorial ambitions. Muhammad bin Tughluq's reign was marked by ambitious military campaigns. He sought to expand the Delhi Sultanate's territories in all directions. In the early years of his rule, he focused on consolidating control over rebellious provinces. He then turned his attention to expanding the empire's borders. One of Tughlaq's most notable military endeavors was his campaign against the Kakatiya dynasty. This kingdom was located in present-day Telangana. The Sultan's forces successfully conquered the region. This expanded the Sultanate's influence deep into southern India. It was a significant achievement that showcased Tughlaq's military prowess. Tughlaq also had his sights set on conquest beyond the Indian subcontinent. He planned expeditions to capture Khorasan and Iraq. These ambitious plans reflected his desire to create a vast, multi-continental empire. However, these campaigns never materialized. They were hampered by logistical challenges and internal revolts. The Sultan's military ambitions often outstripped his resources. His campaigns, while initially successful, stretched the empire thin. This led to increased taxation and economic strain. It also made it difficult to maintain control over far-flung territories. Many of Tughlaq's conquests proved to be short-lived. Rebellions broke out in various parts of the empire. The Sultan spent much of his later reign trying to quell these uprisings. Section 6. The Scholar Sultan, Intellectual Pursuits, and Cultural Patronage. Beyond his role as an administrator and military leader, Muhammad bin Tughluq was renowned for his intellectual prowess. He was fluent in Arabic and Persian. The Sultan had a deep interest in various branches of knowledge. These included mathematics, astronomy, logic, and philosophy. His court was a hub of scholarly activity. Tughlaq surrounded himself with learned men from various disciplines. He engaged in debates and discussions on complex topics. The Sultan was known to challenge scholars and test their knowledge. He rewarded those who impressed him with their intellect. This created an atmosphere of intellectual ferment in his court. The Sultan was also a patron of the arts and literature. He commissioned works on history, science, and philosophy. Tughlaq supported poets and musicians. He encouraged the translation of important texts into Persian. This helped in the spread of knowledge throughout his empire. Tughlaq's intellectual pursuits extended to practical matters as well. He was interested in medicine and established hospitals. The Sultan also supported agricultural experiments. He tried to introduce new crops and farming techniques. While not all of these initiatives were successful, they demonstrated Tughlaq's curiosity and desire for innovation. Section 7. Unintended Consequences. The Fragmentation of an Empire. Despite Muhammad bin Tughluq's efforts to centralize power, his reign paradoxically led to the fragmentation of the Delhi Sultanate. His harsh policies and failed experiments created widespread discontent. This weakened the central authority and emboldened regional governors to assert their independence. One of the first major blows to the empire's unity came from Bengal. The governor of Bengal, Fakhruddin Mubarak Shah, declared independence in 1338. Tughlaq was unable to bring the region back under his control. This set a precedent for other provinces to follow suit. The Deccan region, which had been a focus of Tughlaq's policies, also slipped from his grasp. In 1347, Alauddin Bahman Shah established the Bahmani Sultanate. This new state carved out a significant portion of the Delhi Sultanate's southern territories. It marked the beginning of a long period of independent rule in the Deccan. By the end of Tughlaq's reign, several other regions had broken away. These included Madurai in the far south and Warangal in the east. The once vast empire was now a shadow of its former self. Tughlaq's successors would inherit a weakened and diminished sultanate. The fragmentation set the stage for the rise of regional powers in the following centuries. Section 8. A mind ahead of its time. Tughlaq's visionary yet impractical policies. Many of Muhammad bin Tughluq's policies, while disastrous in their implementation, were based on sound principles. His token currency system, for instance, was similar to modern fiat currency. It was an attempt to separate the face value of money from its intrinsic value. This concept was far ahead of its time in 14th century India. Tughlaq's agricultural reforms also showed foresight. He understood the importance of crop diversification and financial support for farmers. The Sultan's Department of Agriculture was a precursor to modern agricultural extension services. These ideas, if properly implemented, could have revolutionized the empire's economy. The Sultan's attempt to move the capital to Daulatabad, while poorly executed, had strategic merit. It showed an understanding of the importance of geographical centrality in governing a vast empire. The idea of a planned capital city would be successfully implemented centuries later in places like Brasilia and Canberra. Tughlaq's intellectual curiosity and support for scientific inquiry were also progressive. He encouraged experimentation and the exchange of ideas. This approach was reminiscent of the scientific method that would develop in later centuries. The Sultan's court was, in many ways, a precursor to the think tanks and research institutions of the modern era. Section 9. The Sultan's Legacy. Assessing the impact of a controversial reign. Muhammad bin Tughluq's reign left an indelible mark on Indian history. His legacy is a complex tapestry of innovation, ambition, and unintended consequences. The Sultan's rule marked both the zenith and the beginning of the decline of the Delhi Sultanate. It set in motion events that would reshape the political landscape of medieval India. Tughlaq's administrative reforms, while often unsuccessful, introduced new concepts in governance. His attempts at centralization and standardization influenced future rulers. The Sultan's economic policies, particularly his currency experiment, serve as a cautionary tale. They highlight the importance of careful implementation in monetary policy. The fragmentation of the empire during Tughlaq's reign had far-reaching consequences. It led to the rise of regional sultanates and kingdoms. This decentralization would characterize Indian politics for centuries to come. It also paved the way for the eventual establishment of the Mughal Empire. Tughlaq's intellectual legacy is perhaps his most positive contribution. His patronage of scholars and artists enriched the cultural life of the Sultanate. The Sultan's own scholarly pursuits set an example for future rulers. His reign represents a period of cultural and intellectual ferment in Indian history.